What's up, y'all? This is Eric, aka Logical Faith. Now, I wanted to share a conversation I just had. So I'm driving Uber / Lyft. I ain't gonna say which one, like it matters. But I'm driving Uber Lyft, and I get a party of four. Excuse me. I get a party of four in the car. We stop at a stoplight, and there's like a drug addict tripping out over there. And they're kind of laughing at him, and they're kind of talking about how sad it is. Somehow the conversation went to like drugs in the inner city. And I told them, and they were saying, oh, well, the government needs to do something, and, what can solve it? And, well, maybe if the education system was better, maybe if there was a chance to go to college, people wouldn't do drugs. And I'm telling them, like, look, I grew up in the inner city. One thing they said was, oh, when it's all around you, it's so hard to not do it. I said, I grew up in the inner city. I lived in the inner city my entire life. Never did not one drug. Never did a drug. Never tried it. Never been tempted to. Not even weed. And, it's like they have, this is what makes it frustrating about liberals. The people in the car, I'm assuming they're liberals just from the way that they were approaching the situation. Their hearts were, they genuinely sounded concerned, and they really wanted to know what could possibly make things better. But all of their solutions or all of their suggestions all had to do with the government. None of it had to do with individuals or community. And this is why liberalism is dangerous, because it takes all responsibility away from the individual and the community, and it puts everything on the government. And, I was kind of getting a little frustrated hearing them speak, not because I was, offended or anything, but they don't understand how disenfranchising that mentality is to the people you're trying to help. If you're trying to help someone, and you're constantly telling them the only way that they can get better is if someone else does something for them, you're basically telling them that they're powerless. And when liberals do this, liberals don't do that to white people. Liberals only do that to people of color. And that's why a lot of conservatives will say liberals are actually racist. You don't hold people of color to the same standard that you would hold a white person. You would go to a white person and say, hey, turn this around. I'm going to help you, but you have to make a choice. You're going to turn this around. You're going to make better choices, and you're going to do better. But when they talk to people of color, they say, oh, it's all the system. The only way this person can change is the system. And they don't understand how insulting that is. I'm not saying that they don't care or anything, but I'm saying like that approach, that mentality is very condescending. It just is. One of them said I'm a statistic. Now, I had my older brother, he died of a drug overdose. And they're, when they're talking about, well, yeah, when it's all around you, it's so hard not to do it. And I'm like, no, I know. I'm like, look, I had family that sold drugs. I had friends that sold drugs. I had people in the neighborhood that sold. I was around drugs all the time. I never was tempted to do them. And I'm not saying like I'm just some great person, because of this or nothing like that. I'm just trying to point out that I was trying to point out to them the emphasis on how important it is to understand personal choice. Now, I understand drug addiction is a monster. I understand that depression and curiosity or all kind of different things lead people to try drugs. I'm not saying that it's so I'm not saying that it's not easy to fall into that trap. I'm not saying that it's easy to get out of it once you're there. I'm not saying that. But if you completely take away the aspect of personal choice, you basically it's like telling the person to climb a ladder and chopping their hands off. Or it's like I should say it's like trying to teach a person how to climb a ladder without telling them to use their hands. Like, let's say for whatever reason, some person didn't know anything. They didn't know about how to climb a ladder. They didn't know how to use their arms, whatever. And you're like, I'm going to write an instruction manual for people how to climb a ladder. And you never mention using your arms or your feet or something that's important you need to climb a ladder. You know, when I told them, like, hey, you know, I grew up right in the hood, right over here, because we were literally close to where I lived at. Like, I grew up right over here. There was drugs around all the time. I never tried it. You know, my older brother died of drug overdose and all of this stuff. And they're like, one of them literally said, wow, you're a statistic. I'm just like, look, I said to them what I said to, they were all white. It was like 4 white people. And I said to them what I tell everybody. If the black community, and drugs don't just affect the black community, I know someone's going to say that. If the black community really wanted to end the heavy presence or the heavy like kind of outright or in your face drug dealing and drug usage and the kind of in your face blatant violence, if the black community wanted to change that, the black community can do so. But the black community does not want to do so because of the implications. Because that means confronting your brother. That means confronting your cousin. That means confronting your best friend. That means, you know, not taking easy money to deal with the problems, the financial problems that you have, and actually like really doing something that's going to take work. It would take difficult conversations, difficult choices, and a change of culture. You know, and people hate when you talk about black culture. They say there is no black culture. Yes, there is. Yes, there is. But anyway, I was trying to emphasize choice. There's a lot of challenges that people in the hood face. You know, they're like, oh, well, maybe if the public school is better, or if people can go to college. I said my brother was a college graduate. My brother was an excellent student. And they were amazed. And it's crazy. This is sad. Like, they were amazed that my brother was a college graduate and that he got hooked on drugs, like bad drugs, not just. From my understanding, it started with like painkillers, and then he started doing heavy, dangerous stuff. They were like, "What? Wow!" Like it never occurred to them that having a chance, an opportunity to experience higher education, or you know, not falling victim to the system or however way they viewed it. It never occurred to them that a person can have all of the right opportunities in front of them and still do something bad. And that is just sad. It is sad that people think that way. People make choices. Not every person is going to make good choices. There's a lot of things that happen that can influence your choices. There's a lot of things. It's just life is complicated, right? We know that. But the idea that, wow, this person went to college and, you know, like think about how many people go to college and they ruin their lives by drinking. Drugs the same thing. Like they made a choice. You have a culture that encourages and invites alcohol and that sort of thing. And they fall victim to it or whatever, however way you want to view how they get involved into it. They get involved into it. Drugs is no different. It's something that someone decides to do, or someone slips something in their weed or whatever, which in the end, they still made some kind of choice. They made some kind of choice to put themselves in that position. And maybe something bad happened to them that made it worse and whatever. I'm just, you know, when I'm talking, I'm kind of thinking of the different arguments that people say. That's how I kind of tend to go on these tangents. But all I want to say is I was just mind blown by the conversation. It never once occurred to them that people just make bad choices. You know, I'm like, you know, it's so hard not to do it. It's all around you. I say this. No. It's around me all the time. I never was tempted to try nothing. Nuffin, nothing. I never tried nothing. Okay. And I don't even know what else to say. I'm just repeating myself, but liberals, stop treating people like they can't make choices. When you treat people like they can't make choices, you take away the most powerful thing that they have. The most powerful thing you have as an individual is the ability to make a choice. And if you try to call yourself helping someone, but you're constantly telling them that they don't have a choice, that the only way that they can improve is by if someone else does something, you are oppressing them. You're forcing them into a mentality of helplessness. And liberals don't understand it. When you talk about when you talk about parents and kids being separated at the border and, oh, somebody must do something and the government must the only way to solve the problem of families being separated is that the only way to solve it is to let them all in the country. They made a choice. They made a difficult choice. Like, crossing the border is not just like crossing the street. It's so many things that are involved. So many people die along the way. So many people are kidnapped and sex trafficked along the way. It's a long, hard journey. People get scammed out of their money. They get sick. They get diseases. Some of them get left behind. If they get injured, then the group leaves them. Like, they made a choice to put themselves through a very difficult scenario. And when you act like they don't have a choice, number one, you're never going to solve the problem. But number two, you make the people, you treat them like they're helpless animals. And you have to stop looking at people as if they are not people. You have to stop looking at people of color like they don't have the same mental capacity or emotional stability as white people. And if you're going to treat them, if you don't think that they have the mental capacity of white people, if they don't have the emotional stability or the maturity or whatever else that you expect white people to use to make good choices, if you don't believe that people of color have that, then don't get mad when people apply the implications with saying that you view people of color differently than white people. You believe that people of color are inferior. You are a racist. And it's like, I'm not racist. I love black people. I love people of color. But you treat them like they're stupid. You treat them like they're helpless. And a conservative comes along and says, no, black people can change. Any people of color can change. They just need to work hard at changing their mentality. And that's my biggest thing. My biggest thing isn't just necessarily pull up yourself by your bootstraps, work hard. I believe in it. But my thing is, it's all up here. It's all up here. It's the mentality. And if you don't hold people of color to the same standard that you hold a white person, you, sir, don't think that black people or people of color can do as good of a job. For whatever reason, you think that they can't do as good of a job. And if you think that people of color cannot do as good of a job as a white person, there are implications to that line of thinking. Number one, you're saying that people of color are inferior. It's just, there's no way around it. You're literally saying it. The other implications is that if people of color don't have the emotional stability or the mental capacity of a white person, for whatever unfair reason you may think of, then logically it makes more sense for a person to hire a white person, because the black person, according to you, don't have the same mental capacity, don't have the same emotional stability. Now, that's the most logical solution is to not hire them, because they're more difficult to work with. They're incapable of doing the same job as a white person. This is why I challenge liberalism the way I do. This is why conservatives call liberals racist. This is why we say no. You can't just look at a system, because when you're only looking at a system, you're saying that the individual is helpless. The individual can't overcome it. They're weak. They need the white man to help them. And y'all don't understand this. It's frustrating. It's frustrating. I'm not saying that it's intentional. I'm not saying that you want to be racist or whatever, but your worldview, you are the ones who literally look at people of color as inferior to whites. And the proof of that is that you hold them to a lower standard. I'm not trying to hear that. I don't know. I don't even know what I'm saying here, but look, think about the implications of what you say out your mouth. Practice what you preach. Every belief that you have has logical implications to it. Whether it's your religion, whether it's, creation versus evolution, whether it's your view on oppression, whether it's your view on capitalism versus, what do you call it? Communism or something like that. There are implications to your views. And if you are unable to face the implication of your views, if you're unwilling to actually live them out, then it's time for you to adopt a new worldview. You can't hold this worldview that liberals are more moral because liberals care about giving black people and people of color a boost. And when you can't hold on to the idea that, the system is too tough for blacks, people of color, and they don't have enough education. They don't get what white people have. They're so traumatized by slavery. The implication of that is that you're saying that there's emotional instability there. That's the implications of that. You're saying that there is a lack of competency. Now, you're saying it's because of the system, but you're saying that it's there. You're literally saying that people of color don't have what white people have. But then you call somebody else racist. Think about that. Think about that.